Hello, this is the Happy Weight podcast and my name is Aoife. Thank you so much for tuning in. God, I always have so much housekeeping that I want to cover before I actually get to the topic of the podcast. But I suppose today's a happy day because the podcast has just hit 10,000 followers. And so thank you if you've been listening to this for a long time. And it's amazing actually how many times I've been told by people that, my friends send it on to me and then I listen to episodes all weekend or something like that they binged episodes. And then it was a major little, me and Jack, who produces the podcast, we were like, we're nearly there. It's, it's going to be 10,000 this month or whatever. And then there was a real last minute boost. Living as Nicole is her handle on Instagram and she's got 80,000 followers. And she gave a shout out to the podcast and all of her followers clearly love and trust her. So a few hundred of them went flocking to my page and flocking to the Spotify account and listening to episodes. And so it was a real genuine shout out. And I think that's really cool. It's like Nicole genuinely got help from the podcast. And that would be a lot of my clients. A lot of my clients are someone sent them the podcast. And now everything is different. So on that note, would you like to share this with a friend? Would you like to send this to someone who is just always stuck with their weight, and you see them and they're there on a meal out and they're telling you about what they're doing currently and how they're not going to eat the bread or they're not going to, and they're not being themselves. They're being controlling and rules-based with food. And maybe you've seen them like this for a long time, like they're always on and off some wagon. And if they are like that, I'm telling you, give them a little piece of freedom. Maybe they're ready to hear everything that I have to say, because I had weight issues and was fully, front row seat for dieting for the bones of 20 years. And there certainly is the whole thing that you might or might not be ready to change. Like I said, I would have fought for low carb diets at one point till the day I die. I thought, even though I was binging like a maniac, I never blamed that on the low carb diet. I thought the low carb diet was perfection. And if I could just stretch it out to actually get a few good days in a row or actually keep it going for long enough. So when you're in it, you don't realize you're actually promoting a weight problem and all of that. But like I said, then I came to a point where I could see the error on my ways and I was ready to, I suppose, evolve past eating and weight issues and all the low self-esteem and, the bad ways we talk to ourselves, the bad ways we talk about our body, the bad ways we talk about food. And I love that saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, because there would have been a lot of things that happened to me at that point that came together to really change my mindset. And at the time I was ready to hear it and I was ready to change. And that's always, readiness to change is always the biggest part of this. But anyways, if you would like, could you press follow? Could you give the podcast a review? And could you share it with someone you think is struggling? They're my three main asks. And reviewing it, giving it 5 stars mightn't be a super big deal. Might take you a split second, but it means a lot to me and Jack. So thanks a million. And then what else was I going to say? Oh, that awful saying Kate Moss had it, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. I think, there's a resounding, we're all in agreement that that's such a warped, disgusting early 90s heroin chic saying that no one really agrees with, especially now, May, I'm just communion season, so many family gatherings, the start of barbecues, and you're like, whatever, as if sharing foods and drinks with your family and friends, as if that does not contribute to a happy life. Who are you kidding? Of course it does. But the other day I was eating a yummy, fatty, yummy salad, because I had, I can be generally, I don't want to pigeonhole myself. I'm all for affirmations and stuff. So I don't want to say a black and white statement. However, historically or to date, I have been quite unorganized with food and can be, and I really procrastinate on doing a food shop. And I'm a kind of last minute, keeping my nervous system on its toes kind of girl, 5 minutes late for everything, all of that. So, last week, like I was in the cost cutter next to my office and I was like, God, you really do get penalised for not being organised, don't you? Like in every way, like as in yesterday I had to park in Merchant Street car park, and it was like €25 rather than €2.50 for my parking for the morning. So, and then with food, I was like, I went into cost cutters and I'm like, I can be all about hash browns. Hash browns absolutely have their time and place. However, I have learned that for hot hash browns, you have to eat them immediately, because if they cool down, they're actually kind of gross. Like the main thing going for them is the hot oil taste. Just like chips are amazing, cold chips aren't as amazing. And then the only other main choice that I love there is they have these big ciabattas with chicken mayo, sun-dried tomatoes, pesto, and it's highly tasty. However, ciabatta makes me really sleepy, and I like to be on my game with my clients. I want to be as sharp as whatever the saying about sharp is. Like, I want to be super sharp for the 3 p.m. clients just as well as I was for the 9:15 clients. Like, I want to be on my game. So like, ciabatta is more maybe like a weekend food or a nighttime food, where if I'm a bit like sloppy and lethargic and tired post food, it's, there's no major downside to it. So they were my options, and I was like, oh, that's crap. But anyways, at the end of the week then, I think it was Sunday by the time all the hullabaloo of the week ended, I had the salad, and I'm telling you, it's another thing that diet stole from us. Like, making salads as they're meant to be. Like, fats and vegetables are a marriage made in heaven. Like, fat soluble vitamins, you are not going to find them anywhere else but fats. Then stuff like avocados, someone telling you to have a quarter of an avocado, piss off. Like, avocados are like, I'm sure there's something like, I don't know, is it 15 grams of fiber? Like, Irish people are terrible with our fiber consumption. It's like one avocado and you're really getting there for your fiber content of the day. And it's all the right fats. It's all the inflammatory fats. It's all the anti-aging fats. Like, it's a wonder food. So are them all. And then like being generous with the olive oil. I kind of really wince when people say they use Frylight or any of the spray, don't sue me Frylight, but any of the spray kind of fake oils. I'm like, do not be finding ways to include ultra processed foods in your diet. And I hate, one of my biggest bugbears is foods that mask themselves as a health food. So I'm like, those spray oils are ultra processed foods. So are protein bars. So are like protein shakes. So are anything that comes in a packet with multiple ingredients and half of them chemicals. That is not a health food. And I'm like, at least Dairy Milk and Galaxy are being honest. Like, they're like, oh, be treat wise. We're not one of your 5 a day or anything, but like, we could be a nice treat. Whereas all of those foods are, they're masking as health food, and that's really gross. But anyways, back to my gorgeous salad. So I made a gorgeous salad with all the things that could possibly make a salad yummy. Sorry, I'm multitasking here. There's a cat trying to break into something. But yeah, and I felt amazing after it. And after my week of on the go, last minute foods, catching something here or there, I was like, this is literally the best feeling I've had in my belly and my body all week. And I was like, nothing tastes as good as life force feels, because ultimately the point of food is a transfer of life. Stuff grows, whether it's plants or animals or fish. And, I love that idea that, like the Native Americans used to be all like, I'm grateful for your sacrifice to any animal or fish that they ate. And, I'm not on about American levels of eating meat or fish. No one is saying that is healthy. But I'm not about to go vegan tomorrow either. So just being really great for that transfer of life and how it gives you an instant feel good feeling. And we forget all of that, like when we're when we're in the mud with dieting and I should be eating, I shouldn't be eating, like it can be the worst diet, right? Because we can be going to all their like slimming gummies or slimming bars, or, like a low fat diet, and then the fats you're eating are not that great. And we can be going from that kind of diet at one part of the day or one part of the week to then like a lot of processed foods another part of the week. And, in the midst of trying to be good, I think we forget about the point. The point is feeling well after food. And you are the only expert on that. Like, you're the only expert. You're the only person. Like, if I was like, okay, baked potato, smoked salmon on brown bread, battered sausage, packet of Maltesers, what else? A smoothie, I don't know. What else? A sandwich. Like, if you had to pick one of those foods and you were going to tell me, okay, which one would I feel the best after in 20 minutes time? It doesn't matter how many degrees or masters I have. It doesn't matter how many PhDs someone else has or how long they've worked in the field. No one could tell you the best feeling food out of that list in 20 minutes time. You are the only one who has a memory of what each one of those foods feels like in your body and how each one of those foods feels like when you eat it in a time like this. Like, as in when your body's feeling like this, when you're feeling like this, and when you eat this food, this is the feeling it gives you. You are the only person that could know that. So that kind of brings me on to today's topic, which is food as a drug. And I love this, right? Because I think, I don't know, not to be too philosophical or whatever, but I'm like, maybe life is all about starting off with things that we think are wrong with us and that we don't like about our body or personality, like, because, we're all a mix of different interests, different things that like we're super interested and intelligent in some areas, and then we're really dopey and not interested in other areas. And we're all completely different. Like, no one on the planet ever before us or ever again will have the same parents, the same decade, year, day they were born, same place they were born. Like, we are so, so, so unique. And I just kind of think it's the same with food. Like whatever personality you think you have with food, you may have been looking at that like a downside, and you may have been looking at that like a reason that you'll never be the way you want to be. And it is such freedom when we turn it all around, right? So in a bad place, we can be like, oh my God, what if I'm actually a food addict? Like, sometimes I literally can't stop. And the first thing I would say about that is that 90% of the time, if someone's saying something like that, they have been restricting. Like, they have a judgment about food. They have judgment about like, I shouldn't be eating that food. I shouldn't be eating as much as of that food or whatever. So they're putting a ceiling on their calories. They're putting a ceiling on how much food their body is allowed in a week or in a day, or how much food they approve of eating in the day. And it's like, you are just poking your survival instincts by doing that. It's just like, as in, if it came on the news now that there's going to be less oxygen in an hour's time, we'd all be panicking. We'd all be running home to our loved ones. Like, we wouldn't even know what that means. We wouldn't even know, like, okay, what do you mean less oxygen? And like, how much oxygen do I need anyway in a day? Like, we don't know those things, right? But just that general concept of oxygen being limited just does something to our survival instincts. And it's the exact same with food. The very idea that we're being cut off a little bit from food, either in amount, calories, a type of food, a food group, that will always instinctually make us go find calories, make us go overeat. So you can't judge yourself as an overeater, a food addict, someone whose love for food is a little bit over the top or whatever, if you've been coming from a place of counting calories on an app, striving for a certain diet in a day, because, like I said, your brain and your limbic system is in a reactionary survival mode, fighting against that. So this isn't the normal lay of the land. This is the normal reaction any creature would have to scarcity. So don't judge yourself on that. And like, there's a saying that when you accept things, they change. And like, when I kind of had a big eureka moment binging in the office in the old job that I used to, you know, I'd have a whole day of coaching diets or people on a restrictive diet. I know it's so bad, but I was doing my best at the time. So I was in my job, keeping people on a very low calorie diet. Meanwhile, suppose trying to do the same myself, and then finishing my day and binging in the service kitchens of our posh offices in Chelsea, and, you know, eating however many twirl bars were there basically. And then one day I realized, you know, probably because I had been under eating, but, you know, whatever I had been eating was still an absolute mistake and failure compared to whatever my brain was striving for, and that's disordered eating. But, you know, I had a few chocolate bars and my belly felt grand. And then that was like whatever little moment of a miracle I had. I was like, how can anyone tell me that those 4 bars of chocolate were bad for me, or 5 or 6, I don't remember how many it was, if I felt perfect. And then that was the start of me going about all of this like an individual. Like, let's turn off all the noise and let's study my body, because maybe my body is different. And that's what I'd love to bring across to you today. Maybe your body is different. Maybe the amount of carbs you need today is going to be different from anyone else. Maybe if you were to follow a diet that suggested a certain amount of carbs, you'd feel lacking, you'd feel hungry, you'd feel unsatisfied, you'd feel sad, you'd feel unfulfilled. Like, carbs have a lot to do with our mood, and especially in perimenopause and menopause. Like, we do kind of need carbs for mood. Most people do. So restricting them is another shit show of a route to go down. That leads to more comfort eating. So, you know, and equally, if someone else was like, oh, you can eat all the pasta you want, and then you're like, oh, I feel mank from eating that much pasta or whatever. Like, you have to be an individual. Like I said, if your end goal is like, your body is feeling really well, you're feeling really well, you're the size you want to be, whatever, all of that is comes from following the little breadcrumbs. So one breadcrumb at a time. Like, you know, your body gives you a signal, you react accordingly. Your body gives a signal of discomfort. You get a learning lesson. You're like, oh, note to self, that must have been the wrong time for that food or that amount. Like, as in, follow the breadcrumbs and start building the picture of what your body and your perfect diet is. And this is why, like, the quicker you turn off from all the outside noise is the sooner you will be at your ideal weight and your ideal way of eating. Because what breaks our diet and breaks our spirit basically is comparison, thinking that, oh, this should suit me, this, you know, I should be eating this, I should be eating this, and yet again not going by what actually works for you physically and mentally. So the biggest measure is how well your body is feeling. If your body is feeling nice after a meal, if you're feeling better in the afternoons than you used to be feeling, if you're feeling nice by the time you're lying in bed, like your belly is happy and safe and nice feeling, it's not overfed, it's not underfed, you're waking up a little bit more spring in your step because your body didn't have to stay up and do the night shift of overeating and processing the late night eating that you've done. Like, all these little green lights are green light that your body just cheering you on, that like, yay, you're finally allowing me to go to the place I want to go to. So with that, right, I would say it's the same for knowing we're a druggie with food, basically. So everything for me changed once I was kind of like, yeah, look, do you know what? Maybe it's not ideal, but maybe I do need to eat a chocolate bar every day for the rest of my life. And you know what? That doesn't need to mean that I'm uncomfortable. It doesn't need to mean that I binge. It doesn't need to mean that I overeat or above my calorie amount that my body needs at all. I could be one of those 90-year-old women that people are like, she lived till whatever, 90 whatever, or 101, and she had a Kit Kat and a whiskey every day after her dinner. You know, we could be one of those stories. So like, having a certain food or needing a certain food does not mean you will never be your ideal weight. And the same with being a druggie from food, being someone that gets comfort from food. Because like, you know, I have a lot of male clients, I have a lot of female clients. Over the years, I've worked with couples, and it's always that pissing off situation where, you know, the female needs a lot of work. And the main difference is always our brain is has has got a more active emotional part to it. So we've got more anxiety, we've got more worry, we're more prone to giving out to ourselves. There's a whole argument you could say about body image that isn't just in our head, it's also society or whatever. So I could be working with a male client. He's like, Aoife, thanks for that first meeting. Read the folder, grand. And then you're like few big calls at the start of the program, but they literally don't need me at the end of the 12 weeks. Like they've lost weight, they get it, they're on their way, easy, you know? Whereas women will have a lot of other factors and low self-esteem and making mountains out of a molehill. You know what I mean? Like as in, I'll tell the guys, don't feel guilty. That's just going to slow down your results. And they're like, okay, note to self, let it go. And some of them can just do that then. Whereas, you know, I might have a client that she has one dodgy day and I'm 2 weeks trying to get her out of the doldrums. You know, it's 2 weeks of results on pause, you know, so it can be very different. But anyways, I'm always like to my female clients, don't actually envy those lads, right? Because it's actually lovely to be passionate about food and it's lovely to get a drug out of food. Like I remember there was one day, I think it was a year ago, and I got a really bad haircut and I went into the filling station and I don't know, did I get an ice cream or a chocolate bar? But it genuinely made me feel better for the bad haircut that I had just got. And like, you know, I stand by that. Like that was, you know, I didn't feel sick after it. It wasn't overeating. It wasn't disordered eating. Like it helped me and that's nice. And I'm like, I think if we harness being a druggie with food, it's not something we want to give up, right? But we need to know when we are druggies with food, but we're doing it all wrong. So one of the ways you know you're a druggie with food, but you're doing it all wrong is if you ever have those times where, you know, you I don't know, you make your dinner and you're like, nah, that's not it. What else do I want? And then you go back and you have a yogurt and fruit and you're like, nah, that's not it. What else do I want? And then you have an ice cream and then you have like, I don't know, something from your kids' sweets or whatever. And then you're like, no, that's not it. And then you have an ice cream and then you've options hot chocolate and then you have a chocolate bar and then you're like, oh God, I can't find it. Like I can't find what I'm looking for. And so like that's, you know, that's an example of like you've been done without the drug. And why that happens is your body already hit its calorie needs way earlier on. So whatever you do from here on in now, you're not going to be rewarded. Like the shop is closed for the day. Like you can continue eating, but you're not going to get anything from it. And so the same goes for, or that's wildly different from, you know, I don't know, say being really conscious mentally about what would taste nice and what would feel nice. The new part, of course, is being really conscious that the only way you will get drug out of a food is if your body approves of the time and the food and the amount. So you don't get to decide when you get the drug or what you get to get the drug from. That is up to your body. So say if you haven't overeaten in a day and then you think of one of those double chocolate muffins or whatever from Centra or wherever, and there absolutely is room in your body, like it genuinely does need the calories, like as in that's not putting you way over. And I'm not on about counting calories now, by the way. I'm on about listening to our body and recognizing when we're hungry or full or stuffed or whatever. But anyways, there's room in your belly for this muffin without you feeling over full. And in actual fact, your belly is maybe a little bit empty. Like maybe if 10 is full and 0 is empty, you're like a 3 or something. You know what I mean? So, and then you could eat the muffin and it totally, it's lovely and you get the drug out of it and everything. So they're two very, you know, different things. So I think if we're kind of hunting around the kitchen and we're like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? You need to remind yourself, look, whatever you go for next, it's not going to work. Like the drug shop in your brain is closed for the day and will be back open tomorrow morning when your body has used up the energy from what you've already eaten. But if you keep going with the eating now, all you're doing is actually delaying the hour tomorrow when you will finally get drugs from food again. Because if you remain overfed, like as in if you wake up full as a frog and then head into a big normal breakfast as normal, like you're not overfed, and then head into your mid-morning snack acting as if your body has got through your last thing that you ate or your breakfast, or has got over last night when it mightn't have, and all of that food is still in your system, and now you're just throwing more food down the pipe to sit on top of all the old food that your body hasn't gotten through yet. Like, you're not going to get a drug out of that. And like, how I really like to think about it is, if we are emotional leaders and if we do really need that drug from food, like, how do you know you need the drug more now than tomorrow morning? Like, how do you possibly know that? Like, how do you possibly know you're not going to be really like hormonal tomorrow? You're going to wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You're going to have an awful chat with your boss. Like, someone in your family is going to do something annoying. You're going to get triggered. You're at a different part of your cycle. Like, how could you possibly know that you have no emotional needs with food tomorrow? Like, I think the jig is up with that one. Like, as in, assume you will have a lot of emotional needs with food tomorrow, and therefore don't screw over tomorrow's self by packing all the food in tonight. And then, like I say, being a dry druggie tomorrow. So even if something does happen and you run to chocolate for food, it just doesn't work. Like, and I remember so much of that when I was my highest weight, because the crap thing about like being your highest weight or piling on the pounds quickly is that your body is really deterring you from this. And this is why you might have times where even the yummiest foods are tasting meh. And that's because your body is deterring you from eating right now, because you don't belong here. You don't belong at this weight. Your body is trying to intervene, and maybe there's a lot of calories in your system that are about to turn into new weight. And your body's like, just like, stop, like, I'm going to deter you from food. And like, the annoying thing is that I don't think we interpret that message right. You know what I mean? So like, if we were cave people or whatever, or even it was the 50s or something, and if we were feeling that overfed and our only option was, I don't know, cold bacon and a carrot or some cabbage or whatever, you'd be like, Yira, I'll ride it out. I'll wait till I'm hungry again. They're not that appetizing. Whereas nowadays we could be full as a frog and we're like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's that I need something really sugary, and maybe it's that I need something really fatty. And I remember at my highest weight point, like 18 kilos heavier, like, my takeaways really started changing. Like, all of a sudden I wanted like, duck satay, and you know, duck would be one of the fattier meats. Satay would be one of the more calorie laden things or whatever, and I love it. I'm all for satay, and now I'd of course use that to put a lovely feeling in my body. But at the time, I was like a desperate druggie, and you know, I'd be like, my mom used to be like, oh, you know, they really give us those fattiest cuts in the Drum League Chinese or whatever for the duck satay, and I'd be like hoping it's fatty, like hoping there's loads of fat in it, because my brain and my pleasure centers were so knackered and like so desensitized, because my brain was trying to be like, stop eating. I am not going to give you pleasure from food because you don't need food. But, you know, I didn't really recognize that. So all I was trying to do was like override it. So if we get even fattier foods, or if we get even more sugary foods, or even saltier foods, we've got a chance of like hitting that bliss point, regardless of the fact that our body is really overfed. So like I said, we're using an unnatural amount of fat or sugar or salt, an amount of fat or sugar or salt that didn't even exist in the food chain 30 years ago, to now override our brain trying to deter us from eating by making foods a bit meh. And now we want to actually learn the lessons that, like, if food is a bit meh, it's your body telling you something. Like, as in, if you remember eating this food and like it tasting wonderful and you feeling amazing after it, and now you're eating it and it's just a non-event, it's like, oh wow, note to self. Either I've picked the total wrong nutrient, or maybe my body is done for the day. Maybe, like I said, the drug shop is closed for the day, like as in, I don't need any more food. And the sooner you wake up and realize that and bow out and then leave more room for getting that drug tomorrow, you know, the better that is. So another way we're really screwing ourselves over with the whole being druggies and not maximizing the occasion is like, say, eating a load of 0 point veg and I don't know, boiled chicken or something. So like you're following a diet and at no point is the food giving you pleasure. And this is where I just think we're living in a male dominated world where even the health and fitness area is male dominated, because they're like, what's the problem? You just eat a certain amount of this food and there's no problem, you know. And you hear just such reductionist like bull all the time, making it sound like, oh right, yeah, that's my problem. I never saw the food pyramid, but now that I see the food pyramid, I can just start following it and have no problems. Like, it's so basic and reductionist. And basically, like, the people talking about food a lot are not people with an emotional attachment to food. And then that makes the rest of us feel really bad about ourselves. So it's like, you know, we're following diets where you should be able to eat X, Y, and Z. And then that's it for the day. You should be happy. You should have no cravings for crisps or whatever. If you just fill up on enough fiber and protein, you'll be happy out. And it's like, no, because some people get enjoyment and pleasure and comfort out of food. So that's another way we really screw ourselves over. And like I said at the podcast, you know, I'm all about the moods where you're actually wanting the feeling of olives or cucumbers or Caesar salad or, I don't know, sun-dried tomatoes or whatever, you know, like naturally occurring foods. You're craving that lovely belly feeling that only comes from naturally occurring foods. Like, that's cool. But what I'm on about is kind of being controlling and not for a second thinking, hey, what can I imagine that, like, you know, half an hour after my dinner, I'd be sitting on the couch being like, God, wasn't that gorgeous? Like, I am so fulfilled. I literally don't need or want to go to the press for more snacks. Like, I am the happiest queen in the land right now with how my belly feels or whatever. We're not really thinking about the after. We're thinking about the before. What should I eat? And, you know, and yet again, that mistake is, oh, if I eat enough 0 point veg and dry protein or whatever, well, then I won't need snacks. And then it's like, no, if you're a pleasure eater or if you're a comfort eater, you could have had 2,000 calories of 0 point veg and protein and cottage cheese and Rivita and rice cakes with honey and protein bars and whatever else. You could have them diet foods coming out of your ears. And then someone offers you a few Quality Street and you're like, yeah, I'll have some of them. Because it's like, you know, the way people joke about ice cream being a different belly or dessert being a different belly. It kind of is, because if people aren't looking at their diet in unison, that it's like, yes, it's the feeling in your belly, but it's also the feeling in your brain. It's also about getting to the point of satisfied and done. Like, if we're 0 on pleasure, but our belly is full as a frog from fiber and protein, it doesn't matter. We're going to be eating chocolate. So fullness and calories are actually not the be all and end all. So like, when I'm working with clients, I'm getting them to rate their total pleasure score of the day. So like, are they lying in bed like, God, my breakfast was delicious. I wouldn't have swapped it for anything. And you know what? When you actually are asking yourself, what would I feel really good after in 20 minutes? Or what dinner do I need now tonight so I could be sitting on the couch feeling lovely? Like, you'd really surprise yourself. Like, I think as well, a lot of us are retro creatures. Like, sometimes it could be like, I just love a lasagna. Or I'm telling you, the amount of times that quiche comes up, like, it's really weird. Like, I'd say I should chart it actually, that when I'm having my first meeting with clients and, you know, the meeting is an hour and a half, it's like, you know, I'm really downloading a load of information. So if they weren't hungry coming into me, they certainly are hungry coming out of the meeting. And I'm like, oh, ideal, because you're in the city centre, we're next to M&S or Tesco or wherever you want to go. This is ideal because, you know, you're hungry now. So you get to decide, okay, what would make me feel amazing after lunch? And the amount of times it's like eggs on toast or quiche or something like eggs and veg and simple carb related, like, we're actually not that complicated creatures. So equally, it could be like, oh, I'd love a lasagna or I'd love a steak, or, you know, it's not anything way crazy anyway. It can be like very simple foods. So we'd be coming at it that way, that you're getting your pleasure score from food. So now your mission is not, how can I hit a calorie target? It's, how can I get my belly feeling nice? But it's almost like a 50-50 situation. It's like, it's 50% the most important thing that your belly feels nice after, but it's 50% as important that your brain feels happy. And that's how slim people do it, right? Because, yet again, as dieters, we could be starting off with our breakfast with like our overnight oats or total yogurt or raspberries or goji berries, whatever. And, I'm not against any of those foods, but yet again, it's the intention behind why you're eating. Are you eating this because you love it? You're excited about it. You love the feeling it gives you in your belly. You love the taste. And if you are, proceed. But if you are eating it because it's a should, you feel safe when you eat it, in your controlling kind of, I'm too scared to eat other foods in case of what it causes for the rest of the day, well then, it's not the right answer. And we could be, I'm entitled to my breakfast now, my usual breakfast, and I'm entitled to my mid-morning snack. Meanwhile, there's someone coming at food from a pleasure point of view, and they're kind of like, ooh, what would really taste really good. And this actually happened to me last week. The day of my birthday, I went into Bean and Leaf and I got an oat milk latte and I got a custard swirl or whatever. And that was lovely, and it's the feeling I wanted. And I was off work that day, so I didn't mind if I got sugar crashes or whatever. My brain wasn't sharp after it. It didn't matter because I was off work. But then I was shopping around in Mahon later, and I was like, oh my God, it's another who dis moment, because I would have been obsessed with food and always food on the brain. And I was walking around Mahon, I was like, oh shit, I forgot to eat. I'm hungry. And that's because if you're asking yourself, okay, Aoife, out of anything, what would you like? What would taste good? What would feel well? And then you eat that. And then you know that when you get hungry again, the game will start all over again. Or when you're getting to 4 hungry or 3 or 2 or whatever, you're now thinking, okay, the world is your oyster. Out of anything, what would taste good and what would feel good? And basically, I know from clients, even after a few weeks of doing that, even after a few days of doing that, sometimes you actually stop thinking about food so much because you're out of food scarcity, because you are continuously telling yourself that there is a whole big wide world of food out there. And like I said, you're actually a target. For Lidl and Aldi and Dunn's and Tesco and food trucks and restaurants, they're trying to make you put their food in your stomach. So we're living in the opposite of the diet scarcity that diets make us think. It's you are a prized possession, and there's millions and millions of foods that you have to choose for. And like I said, you are literally the only person on the planet that knows your emotional needs, your social needs with food. As in, you might be meeting a friend later and you want to share a gorgeous lunch with her, or you want to share a gorgeous scone with her or whatever. And that's important to you. And yet again, you could do that without at any point feeling overfull, at any point feeling sick. It doesn't need it's the start or end of anything. It doesn't need to spiral into a binge. It's just your priority with social needs, emotional needs. But like I said, maybe I'm adding too many layers to this episode now. But like I said, on a basic level anyway, we want to harness the fact that, yes, we do get a drug out of food. So we want to do that well. We want to be, after the meal, feeling like my brain is happy, satisfied and done. And so is my belly. And like I said with the croissants, sometimes then it means that your belly isn't even that full. You're a 7 or an 8, but your brain is so happy. You're happy to stop eating there, which is the opposite of 0 point veg and protein, because we could be full as a frog, but we're still being what else is in the cupboard, So that's a pure sign your brain does have a need for pleasure from food, and you should address that. So I think I've covered most points, and I've blasta here. I just think the Irish word for taste is way better than the English word. It's blasta. I don't know why I wrote that down. Yep. I think I've covered all my points. Extra brownie points. This is just back to basic, reigniting, our relationship with food, because basically you could have had a bad relationship with food. You might be listening to this podcast and have had a bad relationship with food for 40 years. So this is sometimes I joke about I'm like a marriage counselor, and you and food are on the brink of divorce, and I'm trying to bring you back together with love. And, you know, there's a lot of fake it till we make it when we're coming out of all the fear that dieting and weight problems have created. And like one of the little fake it till you make it moments. Sorry, my brain is running out of energy now. Is that, you know, when you're eating something, you're like, like as in, like, you know, really like force yourself to love food again, basically. Force yourself for it to be a body experience. Like my first cousins, the Murphys and Emmanuel, like they used to always be like when they were eating. Like you'd go over to their house, and if it was 6 o'clock dinner time, there was a chorus of the four of them being like nom 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 nom. And that is kids. Like kids come into this world with amazing relationships with food, and we all did, until we ruined it with finish your plate. It doesn't matter that you're hungry. It doesn't matter that you're full. It doesn't matter that you're not loving the taste of it. And we had all of that growing up. And then we went into diets, which were saying the same. It doesn't matter that you're not hungry. Eat your breakfast. It doesn't matter that you're full. Eat your 0 veg, whatever it might be. So now it's time to go back to not what you should be doing with food, but what creates love with food. Food, in a way, is kind of your little slave and your little helper to make the day nicer, to like give you a little bit of a boost of a lovely feeling in your belly and your body. And like I said, you are the expert. That could be a Kiwi. That could be a Werther's Original. Like you are the only possible person that knows that. But that's the aim of the game anyway. We want to be getting to a place where food is working more and more for us, mentally and physically. So anyways, hope you have a lovely day. And like I said, please like, follow this podcast if you can. Please share it with a friend that's struggling. And also, I would love to work with you one-to-one. If you are struggling, it would be my honor. I'm not being corny. I swear to God, I am not being corny. But like, it's such an awful place to be. Like I had binge eating disorder. I had bulimia. All of it was secret. All of it was kind of undiagnosed. You know, it was only actually when I studied it in college, I realized I had all these things. And, then being 3 stone heavier, owning clothes that were 4 sizes bigger than they are now. I know how awful it is. And actually, not the physical side of it, the mental side of it. The mental side of it is way worse than the physical side of it. Like us blocking our life, us dreading people asking us to restaurants, us dreading family photos, holidays, being at the pool, all of that. That is grim and it has to change. You've a lot of life left ahead of you, and it would be really great to use that life as a person without weight and eating issues. So yes, happyweight.ie is my website. Thanks for being here. If you ever never work for me, never work with me, never buy anything from me, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Okay, have a lovely week.